Maria, now we face a very unique situation of at least three big macro events unfolding almost simultaneously. Brexit, 100 days of new American president, elections in Germany and France, which altogether strengthen the uncertainty. Can you please share with us your thoughts on how banks could at least try to manage such uncertainty?
I would certainly agree that 2016 and 2017 are unprecedented years in terms of uncertainty. There's a lot that is hitting Europe in particularly, but the world at large also. That imply that the level of uncertainty there, therefore the unknown, is bigger than maybe it was, let's say, 5 years ago. And banks, just like anybody else, need to sort of deal with that fact in the way that they decide about the future. I think there is one important way of dealing with the unknown, in particular the unknown, and that is prepare for it. So decide what types of events you want to be ready for, and then look for policies or actions, decisions that are going to prepare for those particular situations. And that varies from industry to industry, but dare I say, it also varies from bank to bank, depending on what their business model is. So I think the important criteria here for preparing for uncertainty is decide which events you will be ready for, and then take accordingly action.
The uncertainty versus risk management. If risk can be managed and predicted to an extent, of course, and uncertainty cannot be managed and predicted, what should policymakers do to minimize losses for population?
I don't think this is the right distinction between risk and uncertainty. Risk is something that can be measured, whereas uncertainty, fundamental uncertainty or nighting uncertainty in the literature, is something that you cannot measure. So you cannot rely on previously measured frequencies to say something about the future, to predict the future. This is the distinction between risk and uncertainty. Now the question is, can you manage both, and is it easier to manage risk than it is uncertainty? And here I'm not so sure. I think both pose challenges. And just an important example is if you think that you're operating under risk and therefore you rely on the measurements of risk, you can go very wrong if the real world turns out to be uncertain rather than risk. So in that respect, I think the issue of managing risk and uncertainty is relevant for both cases, simply because it's not easy to distinguish between one and the other. And here I think that the criteria for preparing for risk is to try and identify which situations you think are important for you to be prepared for. I emphasize not likely, because remember, uncertainty is something you cannot measure. You don't prepare just for likely events. In fact, you may even want to prepare for very unlikely events, in particular if they have huge impact, what we call catastrophic events. But I think that's the important criteria. Decide what it is you want to prepare for. Very much like the Dutch, for example, prepare for floods. They prepare for very unlikely rainfall, not very likely rainfall, simply because they know that if they haven't prepared for very unlikely rainfall, the impact will be catastrophic. And then decide which of these events you want to prepare for, and therefore by implication you also know the effects that you're not prepared for, and then take accordingly action.